Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Milton. We are going to get started with this webinar in a minute or so, but thank you for joining. We'll just give a few more minutes for people to join and then we'll get started. Okay, let's get started. So I think we've just got a couple more people joining, but we'll get started with some introductions and then hopefully they'll join as we go along. My name's Charlie Milton. I'm VP of Strategic Alliances for TrustLayer. I'm going to talk today a little bit about some research that we've done into the challenges for mid-market organizations and how to avoid what we're phrasing or describing as the mid-market security gap. I've worked in the cybersecurity world for a long time. I started my career actually looking at the large enterprise side of things. But for the last 5 years, I've been working with TrustLayer and building their MSP and OEM and service provider partnerships, predominantly focused on the mid-market. Obviously, delivering into the mid-market has different challenges. Those organizations have different challenges. And we did some research recently that we are publishing in our cyber resilience report for 2025 into the challenges seen by mid-market organizations and those people in there, probably a little bit like you, that are trying to manage those challenges, either directly as employees of the SMBs or indeed as MSPs or MSSPs looking to deliver services for the mid-market. So with that, let's just talk a little bit about the challenges for the mid-market. I think we're all familiar with the breadth and I suppose complexity of the daunting number of different technologies, capabilities that are thrown at companies to ensure their cybersecurity. But we looked at this differently and sort of tried to think about whether or ask questions of mid-market organizations as to whether, despite their ability or the option to buy multiple products, it was working for them. And so what we really found was that, firstly, just looking at what the shape of that risk is, that just because you're an SMB or a mid-market organization doesn't mean you're exposed to mid-market risk or middle risk. Mid-market does not equal mid-risk. In fact, the same level of sophistication that's being used to attack the large enterprise is being deployed across by those threat actors across all sectors. What we have seen, though, is that in the face of that, many of the people we surveyed are finding it overwhelming. We've got a third or so of people reporting sleep loss, which is up nearly just over 52% since our last report. So people are finding it stressful. It's clearly a problem for the teams trying to secure the mid-market. But equally, the budgets are not growing. Obviously, in the face of other financial pressures, mid-market organizations struggle to grow their budgets for cybersecurity. And in fact, we've seen the average security budget in our survey falling by 15–16%. That's again in the face of those enterprise grade threats getting through. And we've seen a massive rise in ransomware. There's been the really high profile ones recently, which I don't need to mention, but they are generally the larger organizations. Those enterprise grade threats are hitting the mid-market. So 2/3 of those feel that they can't actually protect themselves against it. And that's leading to a major cyber outage for 1 in 4 organizations in the mid-market. So it's a bit of a contradiction. I think it's not, none of this is a surprise to us, but we've seen the mid-market really struggling, grappling with, in the face of an increasing number of threats, reducing budgets, being able to secure themselves. What that looks like then really is that in-house security teams, certainly. I'm not going to comment for the MSP teams on the call. That is their day job, but are burning out. There is a real fear of missing a critical alert. That am I seeing everything? Am I able to spend the time to take action on critical alerts? Is a real concern for the people that we surveyed. And with that, 1/3 of people are suffering sleep loss due to the pressure that the threat of a cyber attack puts on them in their professional lives. And that's clearly when your work comes home and stops you sleeping, that's something that really needs looking at. Are we doing things in the right way to protect the mid-market? That's on the administrative side of things, I suppose. And clearly, SMBs and mid-market organisations don't have massive cybersecurity teams. They may have outsourced that to an MSP. But at the same time, the users are switching off. Users are being told they can do things more efficiently. They're under pressure to do their jobs. They are therefore taking that as an imperative to bypass security controls. We found that 1 in 4 organizations know that their employees are intentionally bypassing security controls, and with that, clearly, the adoption of SaaS applications is something we've talked about for a long time. But the rise of publicly available AI tools is meaning that an increasing number of data loss events come from within the organization. One of the things that I often say to maybe the less cyber savvy people about AI is, do you know the terms and conditions for the AI tool that you're using? You meet lots of people who are saying it's wonderful. I've got ChatGPT. It's taking minute notes for me, meeting minutes for me. Well, that's great. Have you restricted what it's allowed to do with that information, or have you given all of that information to ChatGPT? So it's a real challenge. People are trying to be more efficient. They're doing that correctly. They're doing that for the best reasons. They're maybe not doing it correctly. They're doing it for the best reasons, but they are opening up their organization to potential data loss. And so what we're really seeing then is that a lot of organizations may feel that they've ticked the boxes to make themselves secure and mitigate the cyber risk, but they haven't actually addressed the main risks that are there. Most organizations, for example, 2/3 here, 66%, have email security. A lot of people doing that via API now. The majority of people using Microsoft 365, and I imagine that's the case for most of you on this call. 2/3 of organizations have some form of web security, be that basic kind of URL filtering and policy control, and yet the threats are getting through. Email is still the primary delivery mechanism for the initial part of an attack, be it a social engineering or a ransomware attack, and half of organizations can't block risky downloads from the cloud or from the web. The majority are not, and this is a piece of research we're going to add into next year, given this rise of AI, are not able to articulate any kind of policy with regard to AI use, or put their finger on what the risk that they are exposing themselves to or are being exposed to by their employees is in relation to the use of publicly available AI tools. And I think this is a real, but between now and the next report, I think this is going to be a real topic of conversation. How do we, we've all been talking about web security and SaaS applications. Publicly available AI is an extension of that SaaS element. I'm sure all of you have had conversations about what your businesses do to embrace and also understand the existing use of AI. I think it's going to be a topic that really drives home the need for a policy and an understanding of where organizations, even in the SMB space, are using it and how they're reacting to it, because it is a reaction. The employees are using it. As we go through, if there are any questions, please pop them in the chat. And Lucinda's on here. Lucinda, maybe you can field those for me as we go along. And certainly don't wait until the end if there are any questions. So, why are those risks getting through? Well, I think obviously there's a lack of resource. The people responsible for cybersecurity are missing those alerts, and we know that is stressful for them. We know that users are bypassing security intentionally, and also there are blind spots. And I mentioned one of those massive blind spots for organizations. Whilst the majority of organizations have web security in the mid-market, the vast majority do not have any visibility of SaaS usage, uploads, downloads, the data in those uploads or downloads. And so, the majority of cases of data loss start, well, not the majority, but a large number start with an employee doing something that they maybe shouldn't, or because they have been convinced to do something that they maybe shouldn't. And we think this is going to accelerate as the use of AI tools and obviously SaaS applications becoming the norm. It accelerates throughout 2025. So what is holding the mid-market back? Why have we got this contradiction between what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve, and the reality of what the respondents to our surveys came back with? I think in part it can be summarized like this. Enterprise, the playbook that you might apply to a large enterprise organization just doesn't work for the mid-market. The majority of cybersecurity vendors have niche products which have very feature-rich but complex configuration, with a heavy resource demand in terms of implementation and ongoing management, and with that, an unmanageable level of total cost of ownership. Effectively, what's required for the mid-market is a balance of something that has the efficacy that is required to protect them, but is easy to set up and use, has really good support, or indeed is provided by MSPs like our MSP partners to support the mid-market organizations with the features that work across the attack surface for the mid-market in a flexible way, that works within the budgets that are available. And when we asked, what the respondents what they plan to invest in, the vast majority said that they plan to invest in an intelligent platform. So moving away from point products, which are more enterprise, where you've got a large enterprise support team, to an integrated platform. Clearly, that was music to our ears because that's what we have. But you know, it's an interesting trend that the mid-market really doesn't feel that siloed point products, if we extrapolate that a bit, are working for them. So you know what we've really feel that we can bring to this is a level of smarter protection in a packaged way. Those of you that know about TrustLayer, know that really what we're trying to do is build a platform that is simpler and more integrated. So fewer tools, meaning fewer blind spots. Templated policies mean that it works out of the box, and a level of protection that works for the SMB. Without all the noise, without all the complexity, that is easy to manage, or indeed easy for your MSP partners to provide, and deliver in really flexible tiers. When we looked at this, and we looked at, I think it's fair to say, the chaos of cloud apps. If we were in a room together, I would start asking for a show of hands. But the majority of organizations, just over half, don't have any visibility into cloud application use. This isn't just AI, this is any cloud applications. So I imagine the majority of you use Microsoft. You'll use OneDrive for storage, I'm sure, or you'll promote OneDrive for storage. What about all the other storage applications? How do you prevent a well-meaning employee uploading a spreadsheet to their personal Google Drive, or even if you don't want to prevent it, understand that they're doing it, so they can work on it at the weekend from their home laptop? The majority of organizations can't do that. It's not just about the download of risky file types, although it's absolutely telling that 2/3 of organizations roughly can't prevent employees from downloading risky files. But what about the upload of risky files? What about the data loss? What about the use of AI in a way that means that anything that is queried or put into AI for a response, that data is not lost to the AI provider, so that they can feed their machine learning. So one of the things that we're spending a lot of time doing with organizations, existing customers and new customers alike, is helping them understand the use and the risk of public cloud AI. A lot of our partners are talking about how AI can streamline businesses as an intentional tool, and make those more efficient. What about the other side of it, where the employees are adopting it anyway, and the business has no idea and no control over that? So the first thing really is reporting on it. And this is a screenshot from our tool. It allows you to see. It may be a little bit difficult for you to see here, but here is a rule where this user has gone to an app called ChatGPT. We're all familiar with that, and you can see here what he's tried to do. He's trying to upload a document, and the risk of that is high. However, the final action is allow. So in this case, that information has gone to ChatGPT. That information might be sensitive information. You can also see here another action, the same user. So here he's going to, it's a little bit difficult for me to see. It looks like Google, and you can then see the chat that he's put in there, and the baseline risk. Understanding what's going on is the first step towards then getting a grip of what SaaS applications are being used, AI included, and we saw earlier on that a lot of there are a lot of people concerned about that data loss. From our survey, over half of the mid-market organizations that we surveyed are looking at CASB as a technology to help them begin to understand the risk primarily, and then control the use of SaaS applications, a lot of that being driven by the use of AI. So again, here you can see in the TrustLayer 1 platform, this is ChatGPT in our catalog. You can see the different actions in ChatGPT, whether they are average risk, high risk. Interestingly, ChatGPT doesn't do anything that's low risk. It's either average or high, which maybe is telling. But we have a large catalog of SaaS applications, ranging through cloud storage, obviously things like Google Drive, OneDrive, etc., with all of the actions and risks associated with them, Dropbox, and then a large list of AI tools that have been in there for a long time, actually. But what's now happened in the mid-market is this understanding, or maybe not an understanding, maybe an understanding of the need to understand where AI is being used. So that's one area, I think, that is really interesting. Obviously, building a very simple policy, again, coming back to that mantra of fitting the mid-market. It's not a matter of doing a 3-month discovery process. This can just be turned on for existing web security customers, and it's very simple to deploy with our direct protect architecture for new customers. The other bit then that I think is absolutely top of mind, especially with things like the mistake that caused the Marks and Spencer's issue that was so high profile recently, is looking at security awareness training. So training the end user to enable their human firewall, if you like. We think a lot about technology always. That's great. But if the user doesn't understand why they need to act in a cyber savvy way, then then we're fighting a losing battle. And a third of SMBs experienced attacks after employees opening malicious emails. Imagine if we could train those users to be much better at spotting the sort of phishing simulation that would result in those attacks. If we could get that down to 10% through education, for example, alone, that would be a massive win. It is a matter of making sure that your organization is not, or your employees are not, the slowest antelope in the herd. You don't need to be the fastest, but certainly being the slowest is really bad, and that comes down to the lowest common denominator of the employees in your organization. We often talk about I don't know, someone lower down the ranks in the company being subjected to these sorts of attacks, but actually that's not the case. Often we hear, certainly in SMEs where there's not a huge number of people, the owner doing something silly, or the finance director, or someone in finance being convinced to pay a bill to a new bank account for an existing supplier. Those sorts of threats we can mitigate a lot of through security awareness training, through simulation, and then measure that change of behavior in a way that really justifies the spend on security awareness training. So just two areas really, I think. AI, understanding the risk of AI and putting some controls around it, and then educating the end users are things that we think can really be done really well from an integrated platform. And that's really what we have. That's what we have at TrustLayer. We've got an integrated platform that covers what we think is the major attack surface. It covers email security, that phishing protection, obviously anti-malware, archiving as well in the email platform, the ability to archive email for later retrieval for any size organization. Actually, there's always people who need to have email well archived and retrievable. The finance teams, the legal teams in any sort of organization. We talked a bit about web. We talked about CASB and the AI angle there. Haven't really mentioned posture management. That's about making sure that your SaaS applications are correctly configured to help you meet compliance standards like Cyber Essentials Plus, ISO 27001, those sorts of things, alongside the training. and obviously identity and access control. Doing that in an integrated platform really makes makes for simplified delivery with maximum efficacy for the mid-market. So that's the summary there. I think everybody has got to the point where more tools, the understanding that more tools are not the answer. What we really need is protection that actually fits, protection that is simple enough to deploy and use, but then also powerful enough to protect organizations. Very happy for any of you, if you'd like it, we'll make sure we send out to those of you on the call the cyber resilience report. It is an interesting read. I think everybody, are there any mind-blowing surprises in there? Not really. It is a reinforcement of what we all know, and I think that is that enterprise security with its complexity is not working for the mid-market, and it's time to think differently. So with that, that's all we were going to go through today. I hope that was interesting. Are there any questions from anybody?
Yes, we've got one question in the Q&A. From Andrew. He's asked, is cloud application security the product you use for the AI report you showed, and is there a free trial of this, please?
Yes and yes, Andrew, thank you for the question. So actually it's funny, Lucinda and I were chatting earlier today about the name Cloud Application Security, or CASB, and I don't think it works for the mid-market. I think it's an acronym that works well for large enterprise, and so we use it. But yes, the AI reporting and AI controls are part of the CASB module. And if you talk to your account team, or indeed me and Lucinda, we can arrange for a free trial. It uses exactly the same architecture as our web security product, so it's the same agents and gateways for that. It is a matter of just turning it on. No enforcement is applied immediately when you turn it on. It's actually one of the things that our customer success team do a lot of with existing web customers when they start to talk about SaaS applications, and it's leave it running for a couple of weeks. We'll arrange to come and show you or help you drive through what's been going on, and you can have a look and see if there's value there. And invariably, it's eye-opening. Thanks, Andrew. Good. Any other questions? No? All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you for all your time today. As I said, my name's Charlie Milton. Please feel free to ask any questions to Lucinda or me. You can get hold of any of the team with the email address sales@trustlayer.co.uk. And we'd be happy to help go into detail on any of these things, and we'll send out the report as soon as it's published. I think in the next couple of weeks, isn't that right, Lucinda? Yes, good.
Yes, it will be live on Monday. So on Monday. Yeah, I'll drop everyone a copy in the email that's attended this webinar.
Wonderful. Thank you all for your time. Cheers.